Hey everyone. So I want to bring something to you all's attention, and it's a very serious and I don't want to say necessarily overlooked topic, because it's not necessarily overlooked. However, it is a topic that a lot of misinformation gets passed around. So I just want to attack some myths, when it comes to the topic. And the topic is, for those who are intrigued to find out, it's mental health disorders. It's just pretty much mental health in general. There's a lot of negative connotations that's attached to mental health, as well as there's a lot of, like I said, misinformation being spread around with mental health. Mental health is a serious issue, because mental health, anything in relations to mental health, regards to, like disorders and everything, over the years, we as a whole, as society in the United States of America, we've actually made, pretty much, I want to say some positive, we made some positive, movements when it comes to mental health. We made some positive adjustments where more people are starting to be diagnosed with, different mental health disorders and stuff. And the issue is because people fail to realize, but when it comes to mental health, this is something that is ideally, it's in the medical field, and people fail to realize that if you don't even have the money, the funds to take care of yourself physically, when you're talking about just regular, checkups, a lot of people can't even afford, to go to to receive medical care for just basic medical, or assessments. It's just like a regular checkup. People don't even have the means of doing that. And so when you include mental health, people with mental health disorders are very, very ostracized. And a lot of the reasons has to do with the fact that a lot of us don't know. We're terribly ill-informed, so shall I say. We're ill-informed in regards to mental health. And not only are we ill-informed, but we're also not trained to deal with those who has mental health in an efficient way. Because, look at the prison system. The prison system alone, when you look at drug offenses, a lot of that, you're looking at substance abuse. There's a lot of people who are addicted to different substances. However, you have prison systems full of drug offenders. However, these people need, they need rehab, they need medical care to help them deal with the issues that is causing them to engage into substance abuse. You know what I'm saying? And our first, the gatekeepers to the criminal justice system, which is the police officers, they're called to a scene to, they're called in to deal with a situation, and it could be a person who is in the midst of having an autistic episode or a bipolar episode, and because the police officers are misinformed, they're not trained efficiently in the areas of mental health, that they're locking these people away, which is not helping them. And this is an issue. This is an issue because a lot of our criminal justice system is filled with people, not only people who have mental health disorders, because when you say mental health disorders, people like to think mental health disorders is like some person, like they think of the severe, they think of, like bipolar disorder or schizophrenia. They think severe, and they associate mental health disorders with violence. And people fail to realize that just because you have a mental health disorder does not make you violent. People fail to realize, like when you look at people or the population of those with mental health disorders in the prison population, a lot of people think that all these murderers and serial killers, all these violent offenders are people who hold mental health disorders, and that's inaccurate. It is less than 10% of those who are convicted with violent offenses. It's less than 10% of those people who actually has mental health disorders. You see what I'm saying? So people associate mental health disorders with violence. A lot of our mental health disorders aren't violent. People, like, for instance, depression. A lot of those who make up the mental health disorder has issues dealing with depression. Not only depression, but anxiety. You know what I'm saying? And then a lot of people don't even realize that a lot of our mental health disorders they come in pairs, where you can have someone who has depression, like major depressive disorder. You can have somebody with major depressive disorder, for those who don't know what it is, and I'm driving, so bear with me. But people with mental or major depressive disorder, it's a mental health disorder that is characterized by persistently depressed moods to loss of interest in activities, causing significant impairment in daily life. So this is someone who you can see showing, like moodiness. They're crying a lot. They're withdrawing themselves from, their friends. The person that, on average, you see them always hanging out with their friends. They seem to be up in spirit. This person isn't involved in the activities, extracurricular activities that they normally partake in because of depression. You know what I'm saying? And this impairs their daily life to the extent where relationships are being ruined. They're incapable of holding a job because their withdrawal is so severe, to the point they're not showing up to work, or when they are at work, they're not doing their duties. They're off in the room, secluding themselves from other people. This is a sign of, or this is what major depressive disorder is. And a lot of times you would see major depressive disorder paired with generalized anxiety disorder. And for those who don't know what generalized anxiety disorder is, well, you came to the right place, because I'm gonna tell you. So it is characterized by a persistent and excessive worry about a number of different things. So this can be excessive worrying about just regular life, like finances. You're worried about death, and we're talking about unnecessary, because of course people have there's the I don't want to say like the good stress, but there's the normal version of stress where people they have concerns of their finances, of my bill's gonna get paid on time, etc. But it is when it is like unnecessary. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just paid your bills, and you have a job, you're married, your spouse have a job, y'all have good paying jobs, and say for instance you don't have kids. All your bills was just paid less than 48 hours ago. However, you find yourself just like freaking out, like you're thinking like, oh, if we don't pay this bill, we're gonna end up getting our car repoed, and we're gonna get evicted. Mind you, you know, you have a consistent, you know, job, there's money coming in, you know. Generalized anxiety is when you worry about things out of the average, like out of its average worry, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're worrying about stuff that the average person does not necessarily, you know, worry. It's, or if a reasonable person was in your position, your predicament, they will look at this and be like, you know, why are they worrying about this? Like, it's okay. It's okay. Here's another example: death. You have people with generalized anxiety disorder, also known as GAD. They will worry about death. Like, this is the person who is constantly coming in their house, and they're, you know, they're getting ready to leave their house to go to an appointment. And this person cannot leave their house because as soon as they get in the car, you know, they're thinking like, oh, I left my stove on and my stove is going to blow up. So let me go and check and make sure that the stove is off. And then you go in the house and you check and you see, okay, the stove is off. Then now you go back in the car and you're like, okay, I'm gonna leave. And then now your mind is playing with you again. It's like, you know, did I check the stove? I went in the house, but I don't think I checked the stove. And now you're going back, and that is excessive worrying, and it's unnecessary. But this is what someone with generalized anxiety disorder would worry about. And a lot of times you will see these impaired. The same person, you will see a person who has issues with major depressive disorder. You would also see symptoms in them with generalized anxiety, because they, you know, they're intertwined. They in a sense work together. Another issue is that I want to bring to awareness is the fact that people like to associate moodiness and like major depressive disorder to females. And let me clarify something, that when it comes to mental health disorders, that the diagnoses are different. Like, the statistics are different when you look male to female, when you look amongst races between blacks and whites, or Hispanics and Asians, or, you know, black and Hispanics. It's different. It's also different based on class. You know, those that are in the more impoverished communities, you know, they are less likely to have diagnoses for themselves or their kids, because they lack the resources, the funds to get the diagnosis. If you don't have money, how, you know, if you don't have health insurance, how are you supposed to get this diagnosis? How are you supposed to be seen, you know? So, and there's a lot of confusion where people try to make it seem like, you know, major depressive and generalized anxiety, that's a female issue. When you look at it, when it comes to diagnosing mental health disorders, people look at things differently. Now, with guys, the disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, is a disorder that is normally seen in males, right along with autism. It's normally seen amongst males. It's diagnosed amongst males. And where generalized anxiety disorder and major depressive disorder, anything dealing with depression, is normally, or I don't want to say normally, but the diagnosis is higher in females than it is males. And there's reasons for that. You know, there's so growing up in school, right? You look at schools. Who gets the most attention by educational staff? It's normally guys. It's normally the male students that get attention by educational staff, and they're mostly diagnosed with ADHD and autism at higher rates than females, because of the fact that males are more likely to engage in physical activities. Males are more likely to act out, you know, to walk up to another student and cause, you know, a fight. Males are more likely to engage in aggression. So because males are more likely to engage in aggression, those behaviors are seen because they're overt actions. They're out there. You can't help but see someone's aggression because they're hitting people, they're lashing out, throwing temper tantrums. So because of that, the school staff is more likely to take them in and say, well, why is this kid acting like this? And then they'll look and they'll compare it to the DSM-5, which is it's pretty much the manual that physicians use, people in the medical field to diagnose people with, different disorders. And, they'll look in there and say, well, okay, these overt actions line up with ADHD and these actions line up with autism. So, this person, and so now that young man is diagnosed with autism or ADHD, where females, our actions are more covert, and a lot of this stuff, I'll get to it, but a lot of this stuff has to do with the way society treats males and females. But with females, depression is more seen because females are more likely to internalize their behaviors. They're not likely to act out. They're not the most likely to hit, to get involved in aggression. You see them crying, and most of their behaviors are internalized. So that is why females are more likely diagnosed with depression and generalized anxiety versus males. Now, a lot of this stuff has to do with the way that society brings up males and females. Now, we teach our men, our young boys, that in order to be a man, in order to express your masculinity, you express it through assertiveness. You express it through aggression. Our boys are not taught what they consider feminine traits. Our boys aren't taught agreeableness. They're not taught to socialize in a manner of you should be seen and not heard, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? Girls are taught to be more well-behaved, don't act out. And when you have young ladies who don't know how to express their feelings, how to express what's going on with their bodies, when they're taught to repress that stuff, you'll see that they are more likely to be diagnosed with depression and stuff, because that's how females are taught. Females are taught that it's okay for them to cry, and men are taught that it's not okay for you to cry. Someone upsets you, be a man about it. Express your masculinity. You know what I'm saying? And so that molds our kids into stuff. There could possibly be more females that have ADHD or issues with autism and stuff, but the way that we wire our children, and its parents, the education, it's society, our environment, the way that our environment wires our children, this is why you'll see certain diagnoses in others that you don't see in someone else. And it's the same thing in the black and brown and white community. White people are more likely to be diagnosed with mental health disorders because in the black and brown community, majority of the black and brown community consists of individuals that live in the impoverished era. So if you are in an impoverished community, you're least likely to figure out that all your aggression and what's going on in your life is associated with depression that you have or that has been in your family. You're least likely to find this information out because you don't have the funds, you don't have the resources. Resource rich families, they have the means, they have jobs that provide them with benefits, so that way they can, get medical care and figure out what's going on with them before it can lead into criminal, behaviors, where those in impoverished neighborhoods don't. Another thing is that people don't realize that poverty has an impact on our mental health. Statistic has shown that people living in poverty are more likely to engage in crime and stuff, because of the fact that poverty wears people down mentally. Okay, say for instance, for example, you have a black family, or you have a brown family, husband and wife and husband, however you want to put it, and they have their children. And then in the family, so we'll say for instance, we'll put it in a heterosexual family, so mom and dad lives in a society where we're taught that the man takes care of the family, but both parents are working, because the mom, there's no room for one parent to not work, because if one parent don't work, there's less income coming in the house, more stresses. So both parents has to work. Both parents, you got dad working day shift, mom working night shift, parents barely interacting with children, so there's neglect there, and parents have to keep food on the table. But then dad is dealing with the fact that, mom is a nurse, and he, was a convicted felon of a drug offense, so his employment opportunities are limited. He's a environmental services worker, which is also known as housekeeping, at his local hospital, where his wife is a nurse, and he's dealing with the stresses of not getting paid enough, because he makes less than $30,000 a year, and his income combined with his wife isn't enough because of all their bills that they got going on top of the fact that this man has had he has had substance abuse issues. He has addiction in his family, but he doesn't know that, besides the fact that he saw that his dad growing up was an alcoholic, and his mother was strung out on drugs. Other than that, he sees that there's a history of drug abuse, but they don't know that it's genetic. You know what I'm saying? They don't know these things. They don't know that with his parents having substance abuse history, them having he is predisposed to having substance abuse issues. He doesn't know that. He doesn't know that he should avoid alcohol use or drug use, because it's prevalent in his family, and that gene is in him. He is at risk of getting involved in substance abuse, becoming a drug addict, because of the fact that his parents were in it. His environment can bring that stuff forth. You see what I'm saying? And the stresses is causing all this stuff. But if you don't have the money, if you don't have the resources, how can you find any of this stuff out? I want to bring you guys into some statistics. Yes, I have to refer to my notes here. Don't worry about it. I know I'm driving, but these notes are, they're easy to read. And I'm about to park right here. But let me tell you some statistics, okay? So women are more likely to be diagnosed with anxiety or depression, while men they go towards more substance abuse and antisocial disorders. We've established why that is because women are least likely to be engaged in things that causes behavior to be seen overtly, where men are, substance abuse, antisocial disorders. Antisocial disorders, for those who don't know, people think antisocial means that you're not a sociable person. That's not what it is. Antisocial means that you're deviating from societal norms. So a social behavior is, not stealing. Antisocial behavior is considered stealing, because it goes against societal's norms. All right. Another thing, antisocial disorder, for those who does not know, is a mental condition in which a person shows no regard for right and wrong and ignores the rights and feelings of others. So in layman terms, is deviating from societal norms, which is caused by a mental condition. 9.5% American adults 18 and older will suffer a depressive illness. Men are 4 times as likely to commit suicide. 4 times as likely to commit suicide. Men are. However, women attempt suicide more than men. 47% of male inmates have antisocial disorder, and 21% female inmates have antisocial disorder. So remember when I talked about how males are more prevalent in the diagnosis for antisocial disorder? Pretty much any disorders that deal with, overt actions. These are statistics that I feel that everybody should know. I want to include that I'm going to include it in the description, the links, so that way you can see that this is not my opinion. Like, this is actual, hard statistics on government sites, So women are twice as likely to suffer major depression more than men. Women are twice as likely to suffer major depression more than men. 1 in 5 adults has experienced depression, and 1 in 5 youth between the ages of 13 and 18 has experienced or will experience depression. 13% of those youth between the ages of 8 and 15 will experience depression. 13% between the ages of 8 and 15. Another statistic is Black and Latinos utilize mental health services about half the rate of white people, Caucasians, and 1/3 the rate of the Asian Americans. So Black and Latinos utilize mental health services, about half the rate of Caucasians, and about 1/3 the rate of Asian Americans. Another 37% of students between the ages of 14 and 21 drops out of school. Suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the U.S. However, it is the 2nd leading cause of death between the ages of 10 and 34. Higher rates of suicide is seen amongst white males 85 and older. Which, if you look at statistics amongst the elderly have high rates of depression. A lot of elderly, they get placed into old folks' home. They get, left alone. People don't visit them more often. And that's an issue. You see what I'm saying? These are all statistics that, I will share the link in the description so you can reference to later. But this is stuff that is, this is serious. You know what I'm saying? So these are just some statistics that I wanted to put out there so people can see that mental health, this is a real issue that we need to address. We need to stop overlooking. We need to stop trying to make it seem like this is an issue that is amongst one set of people, that this belongs to one group, because it's not an issue that belongs to just one group. It's actually an issue that pertains to all people. It's an issue that is seen amongst this is an issue that you can see in heterosexual groups just as well as you will see in homosexual groups. This is something that you will see amongst the impoverished groups just as well as you will see amongst the resource rich groups. This is something that you will see. Men and women have mental health disorders, they may not be the same amongst specific disorders. However, men and women are likely to suffer from a mental health disorder. No one is exempt. As you see, elderly people are not exempt. Young people are not exempt. This is an issue that we all need to be involved in, or it will get worse for our people. You know what I'm saying? This is an issue for all of us. We are all responsible to deal with this situation. And until we deal with it, it will be an issue forever. You know what I'm saying? So I love y'all. Be safe. And if you don't get nothing out of this conversation, get this. Mental health is a issue that all of us are responsible for. Let's stop ostracizing people for their mental health disorders. And let's look at it with an objective mind. This literally can be you. This can be your child, your mother, your brother. We are not exempt. None of us. Black people aren't exempt. White people, Asian, Hispanics, Muslim, Christian, male, female, homosexual, heterosexual, pansexual, no matter how you identify, we are all at risk of experiencing a mental health disorder. One love.